Hey folks, my name is Mark Toby, owner and founder of Enterprise Fitness, and in today's video I'm going to be talking to you about gluten. So firstly, there are a lot of people out in the interwebs that think gluten is not a problem, and I'm just going to say in my personal experience I have seen people to do a hell of a lot better on every facet of health that you can measure cutting gluten out of their diet. Now for a lot of people they're going to say, really, I have to cut gluten out of my diet? Oh my god, gluten's in everything, and that's true, it is. And I've seen it with that is people just do a lot better, as I said, every health facet. So there are a lot of arguments, but I'm going to get into it. Firstly, the problem with gluten, well, what is gluten? Gluten is a peptide found in wheat, rye, and barley. Now, if you're Italian like me, you probably have people who say, but we've been consuming gluten for years and we've been consuming wheat for years with no problems. Now that's true, but what we should also point to and look at is wheat today is a very different substance, basically a very different food product than the wheat of yesteryear. So what I mean by that is the gluten concentration in wheat of today is around 50%, whereas 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it was around only 5% of the concentration of wheat. So there wasn't as much gluten, and therefore our bodies could deal with the small concentrations with it a hell of a lot better. Then if we add into the fact that there's glyphosate in the wheat that we're using. So what is glyphosate? Glyphosate is a pesticide that's used in wheat as a more of a desiccant. So once the wheat is about to be harvested, it's sprayed with glyphosate. Now, does this happen in every single country? No, it happens specifically in the US and perhaps here in Australia too. Not exactly sure on the laws on that one, but definitely in the US. And let's face it, a lot of the wheat that we're consuming in the Western world, let's say, from food manufacturers, is going to come, not solely, but some of it is going to come from US wheats because it is so cheap that it is shipped around the world. Now, if we look at our European brothers and sisters, US wheat is not allowed across the border. So the European Union outlawed US wheat. And that was because genetically modified wheat offers no consumer benefit to people, as in it doesn't offer, it's not fat-free, it's not sugar-free, it's just genetically modified. And because Europe has much more of a cooking culture around what they do, chefs pretty much decided, well, the people decided that this wasn't for them. And within 8 weeks, you can look at the work of Jeffrey Smith from responsibletechnology.org for more information on that. But pretty much it was outlawed by the people. They didn't want it in their country. So there is no US grain in Europe. And this is where a lot of people who are sensitive to gluten perhaps will go over to Europe and consume pastas, pizzas, and whatever in Europe and be perfectly fine. And that's because the glyphosate and the concentration of gluten, it's not the same. It's a different species really of wheat and the way it's processed and manufactured. So all things considering equal, I've found that gluten and people cutting or removing gluten in the sense the way we're eating it in the West, that is Australia and America, and for most of the West that is, you will have favorable results. Now from the research what we have seen is that in Lancet Journal of Neurology since 1966, paper published since 1966, is that a gluten sensitivity can manifest solely as a neurological dysfunction, which means there are no symptoms inside of the gut. Now, when you talk about gluten to most people, what they think of is celiac disease. And it was in the New England Journal of Medicine that published there are over 55 diseases linked to a gluten sensitivity. So what that would suggest is that celiac disease is only the tip of the iceberg. Now, in saying all that, I don't expect anyone watching this video to go through, I mean, some of you might, but go through all the research and all this kind of stuff. But the other thing that people will talk about with gluten is that simply cutting it out is cutting out the calories. Now, that's obviously true because wheat will contain, and the foods that contain wheat usually are not good for you. So when you do cut out gluten, what are you going to eat? Well, good proteins, good fats, good vegetables, really. That's what's left. More fruits, more wholesome, natural foods in your diet. Things that are hunted, fished, gathered, and plucked. Therefore, people's health's improved. But people look at that as a negative. As, you cut out gluten, well, they're just cutting calories. That's why their health improves. Well, yeah, I mean, that is part of the reason why their health improves, but the other part of it is that you no longer have a autoimmune driver. So the problem with gluten is that it does increase the amount of zonulin in your stomach, which can then, therefore, prompt things like leaky gut. Now, it's a simplified statement that's going to happen for everyone because that's not true. However, if you're watching this video, I'd probably guess that you're more interested in optimal health and you want the leading edge thing. So if that's you, I would suggest cut out gluten. They're my thoughts. Till the next one, train hard, eat well, and supplement smart.